Yeah, Trick, I'm not getting frustrated with you because you're confused by my ideas on this. Not at all. I got frustrated with you because you didn't seem to understand that it was you that are confused about my ideas and thought that I was confused about what classical logic entails. Right? You said philosophy 101. You need this is philosophy 101, right? Fine, I don't take that as an insult to my person, but I happen to do know about logic, and I don't want to waste time, so I push back on you. And now you're saying, don't get snippy, Piro. We both know logic. I'm educated in logic too, so... And that's why I pushed back, to get to this point where we could both acknowledge that we're familiar with the fundamentals of logic as it's classically viewed. Right, Gary's all like, I don't care what all those Muslim professors think. It's not like I'm saying, here's what Bertrand Russell thinks, and therefore you should believe it too. I'm not arguing from authority. I'm saying, here's what Bertrand Russell thinks, and I disagree with it. This is fundamentally different. And when I'm speaking for classical logic, I'm not setting up a straw man. I'm describing exactly what I was taught that it was, and the rules that I had to follow to do proofs and all the various logical exercises I've had to do, which is many. Okay. So now the problem is though that I don't think you understand Logic 101, and I don't think you right now are showing an ability to comprehend logical philosophical statements. Going back to Realism at Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, you said that the fact that I believe and will say that material exists means that I'm a realist, because I think it exists separate from me perceiving it. That, like, for example, if I die, that it will go on existing. And you said you read this definition, and you accept this definition, and you've obviously misread it. It's only a goddamn single sentence. And me believing that the material world exists, that phenomena exist, does not subject me to this definition. So generic realist believes A, according to Stanford, A, B, and C, and so on exist. And the fact that they exist and have properties such as F-ness, G-ness, and H-ness is independent of anyone's belief, linguistic practices, conceptual schemes, and so on. Well, I don't believe things in themselves exist, because material exists. You're the one that assumes that means it's the thing that has F-ness and G-ness, and I'm saying it's not a thing, and why? Anything could be called a thing. Yeah, in normal language, but not in philosophical language, not in logic. To be a thing, it has to have properties. F-ness, G-ness, H-ness, predicates that apply properties to the object, to an identified object. And the identification has to be sufficient, of necessary and sufficient conditions. And that's what I don't believe. Yeah, material exists. It doesn't have H-ness, materiality. That's just a word made up. When you believe that the things of nature are really more wave-like and flow-oriented, that flow, concepts about flow, fluctuation, flux, are more apt, things don't have inherent properties then, because they're systems. And it becomes compatible with what we've noticed in nature now, that red is not in the red apple, like Plato thought. Red is a behavior of the system. So-called properties of these systems, if things are systems, are not inherent properties, but I could see it that way. Yeah, and miss the boat on the important subtle issues because you haven't gone out to enough decimal places. What is called a property is really just an expression of that system. It's a behavior of that system. And we have to make exceptions for classical logic all the time. We don't say the mirror is red just because it's reflecting a red wall. You have the mirror tilted at a red wall. The mirror is red. You don't say that just because it's reflecting light. But if the apple is red, yeah, because you don't see the red source. You haven't But it's the same thing. Those are systems interacting with other systems. And the property is not inherent, and that's why it's important, because classically it's supposed to be inherent. And yet properties come and go, and if they adhere so well, why are the bonding so weak? It's because your model, to make that model work, everything has to be bouncing around. When it's a system, you regain continuity by acknowledging time and becoming, the other irregular verb besides to be that we've based all of this logic on, of to do, and related to become. Right? Now, even if material, just by me saying it exists, did have to be a thing and did have to have properties, which you probably say because you can look at it that way, and therefore that must be the best model possible. Like, I built a model of the Sistine Chapel. It must be the Sistine Chapel. You build a more accurate model of the Sistine Chapel. They must be. None of them are the Sistine Chapel because of this time continuity. There is no H-ness to worry about. It doesn't have Sistine Chapelness in it to worry about. But even if believing in material meant that material is a thing and it has F-ness, and the traditional logic works on reasoning with it, it would still have to believe that I believed in that independent of anyone's beliefs, linguistic practices, or conceptual schemas. And I don't. Gary went on along about how much truth is relative to the language, and the language, how much you narrow it down, and it's dependent on linguistic practices. But I think that a thing is like a data structure in the mind. You know, it is to a book the digital representation of the book in a computer, you know, in an e-reader. So the thing that has properties is in our head. We get a bunch of qualia, we bundle them together and say, look, now the thing has quality. Qualia, pure quality. This is red, this is heat. We bundle them together and say, okay, there's something relating all these qualia. And that thing is on our head. So it's definitely dependent on your personal beliefs. Though you can argue, because of the word belief, that no, it's not like whatever you believe is true. But it is not independent either. Your beliefs have an effect on it. But even more so, the linguistic practices and the conceptual schemas, when we get into a more scientific term for this, the way your brain is made up, both biologically built in and the things you learn and what is your day of the day and your blood sugar level, and all of these things expressing themselves through a conceptual schema, a way of thinking about stuff, that defines what objects and what properties you're going to see and reason with. And the fact that I believe there's a real material world, and it's just that things turns out to be no better than God at modeling it, doesn't mean I'm a realist. Realists are people that believe that this traditional epistemological framework is actually somehow out there in the real world. That you don't need a human to categorize something for it to get in one of these categories. It's out there sitting in its category, and its category is somehow out there sitting in the real world. And I don't believe that. Therefore, I'm not a realist. And if you can't read this definition and see that, then I think we have a starting point that goes back to critical reading and philosophical reading. And also, I don't know about your philosophical education. You know, I rejected a lot of the things I was taught, but a lot of the methodologies, you know, I accepted. And one of them is that when you read somebody else's idea and you're replying to it, you have to take their idea as strongly as possible. Like, if they misspell something, you correct their spelling and you move on. If they misspeak and you think they meant something else that would put their position more strongly, you don't go, woohoo, they could have been stronger, I'm glad that blow didn't land. You land the blow for them. You said, look, you should have said this, and that would have been more critical. Like when I said, you should have said that I am a child endangerer. You know, that's me filling up your blow that you didn't land quite right, that I saw, well, that could have landed. And then you argue against that improved thing. You have not done that. You haven't read even this definition with an understanding to the flexibility. If this is Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, if they had wanted to say anybody that believes that they're not causing a dream world that they inhabit is a realist, they would have fucking said that. So that shows a severe lack of understanding. And you either need to retreat from that, or you tell me what in this definition does me saying that I believe in materialism, that there are material phenomena, that there are things that I'm not creating, namely my perceptions. How does that make me a generic realist? Because it doesn't.